My sister said, "We didn't get anything for your son. He's not really part of our side," while her kids ate $90 meals, and my mom whispered I should have warned them. So I just smiled and waited. 5 minutes later, they begged me. The first thing I remember was my sister saying, "We didn't get anything for your daughter. She's not really part of our side." Her voice was so calm, it almost didn't register. Then I saw her kids digging into their $80 pasta bowls, while my daughter sat there with nothing but a glass of water and the butter knife she was using to make little prints in her napkin. It was my mother's 65th birthday dinner, the kind of event she'd been bragging about for months like she was hosting the damn Met Gala. Private dining room, candlelight, her name printed on the menus in gold foil. She'd forgotten to ask me to pay, but made sure to mention the price of everything at least twice before I offered. I was 5 minutes late, walking in with my daughter, Lily, clutching my hand, eyes wide like she'd stepped into a movie. Everyone was already there: my mom, my sister Miranda, her husband, their perfect twin boys, two aunts, an uncle, and cousins I hadn't seen since college. The second I walked in, the air shifted. Miranda's face tightened. My mom's smile flickered like a light bulb about to die. I hadn't exactly told them Lily was coming. Her sitter canceled last minute, and I wasn't about to leave my kid alone for a night of family theatrics. My mom gave me a stiff hug, whispered, "You should have told us," and moved on like she hadn't just said that. I brushed it off, pulled out a chair for Lily, told her to sit, smile, be polite. She tried. She's 10, not great at fake smiles yet. The twins got fancy mocktails in glowing glasses. Lily got tap water. I told myself I was imagining the tension, until Miranda leaned in close, smirking like she was doing me a favor, and said that line again, "She's not really part of our side." My jaw locked. I didn't say a thing, just helped Lily cut her food while my stomach burned. Then, when the server came to ask who the check was going to, I smiled right at my mother and said, "Not me." The room froze. Forks paused midair. My mom blinked like I'd slapped her. "You said you'd pay," she said quietly. "I changed my mind," I told her. "I don't pay to watch my daughter get treated like she doesn't belong." That's when Miranda laughed, this little scoff that made my skin crawl. My mom started in with the guilt trip. "You're ruining the evening, you're making a scene." And then, out of nowhere, my Aunt Ruth, quiet, timid Aunt Ruth, stood up, walked across the table and slapped my mom. The sound cracked through the silence. "That's your granddaughter," she said, shaking. "What the hell is wrong with you?" No one said a word. I grabbed Lily's hand and left. That was the last time we ever sat at the same table. But it wasn't the last time they crossed a line. Because 3 weeks later, I found out my mom and sister weren't just trying to cut me out emotionally, they were planning to take something else. Something that belonged to me. And that's when everything changed. Before that dinner, things had already been off for years, I just didn't want to see it. I grew up in a small suburb outside Kansas City. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and reputation is currency. My mother, Patricia, was obsessed with how things looked. Not how they were, just how they looked. She used to say, "Family isn't about love, it's about loyalty." I didn't realize until later that what she meant was, "Keep quiet and make me look good." Miranda, my older sister, was her favorite, always had been. The success story. Married young, stayed thin, perfect little house, perfect little boys. I was the screw-up single mom at 22, working 2 jobs and living in a duplex my mom liked to call temporary housing, even though I'd been there 8 years. I think part of her hated that I stopped trying to impress her. Another part hated that I'd made a life without her help. When Lily was born, my mom refused to come to the hospital because people might talk. She said having a baby without a husband made her look bad. Miranda didn't visit either, she sent flowers, no card. Still, I tried to keep the peace. Family birthdays, holidays, the usual scripted smiles. I didn't want my daughter growing up with no family. But the cracks started showing early. At Christmas, they'd give Lily a single, shared gift with Miranda's twins. At Easter, they'd take family photos without calling us over. Once at a barbecue, I overheard my mom tell one of the neighbors, "Lily's father is complicated." He wasn't. He just didn't want anything to do with us. Still, I kept coming back. Because part of me still wanted to believe my mother would someday look at my daughter and see her, not the inconvenience she decided she was. Then last year, things got worse. My mom's health started slipping, or at least that's what she said. She started talking about planning for the future. At first, it sounded like normal end-of-life talk, wills, life insurance, whatever. But she got strange about it. She'd call at night and ask weird questions. Who's your emergency contact now? Or you still keep your savings in the same bank? I'd brush it off, thinking she was just paranoid about getting old. But then Miranda started getting nosy too. You should give Mom a key, she'd say. What if something happens to you? I did once. When I had surgery 2 years ago, I never got it back. I didn't realize until later that that key was the first move in a plan they'd been building for months. And I didn't see the signs because I was too busy trying to make peace, too busy trying to make my mom proud. Until that birthday dinner, when I finally saw what she really was. But what came next made that dinner look like child's play. Because 2 weeks after I walked out, my cousin called, trembling, whispering like she was in danger just for talking to me. And what she said made my blood run cold. It was a Thursday night when my cousin Becca called. I hadn't talked to her since the dinner. She wasn't even there, but she'd heard the fallout, how my mom told everyone I'd lost control, how Miranda played the victim, saying I'd embarrassed Mom on her birthday. I thought Becca was just calling to gossip. She wasn't. Her voice was shaking. I need to tell you something, Jules, but you have to promise you won't say I told you. I remember sitting down at my kitchen table, staring at the crumbs from Lily's half-eaten grilled cheese. What happened? Becca took a breath. I was at your mom's house earlier. Miranda was there too. They didn't know I was still in the other room when they started talking. My stomach sank. She hesitated. They're planning something, Jules. I think they're going into your house. I didn't move, didn't even blink. They said since you're going out of town this weekend, it's the perfect time, that you'd never even know. Becca's words started to blur together. I could hear my pulse in my ears. My mom still had that spare key you gave her, Becca said quietly. She never returned it, and your mom told Miranda exactly where you keep your documents. I asked what documents, and Becca paused again, long enough that I knew I didn't want the answer. She said, we don't need her anymore, but at least we'll take what's hers. I didn't remember hanging up. I just sat there, staring at the dark window over my sink. My reflection looked strange, too still, too calm. That weekend, I was supposed to take Lily to a small cabin up north. She'd been talking about it for days. I looked at our packed bag by the door, the one with her pink blanket folded on top, and my hands started shaking. I called off the trip, told her the weather looked bad. She pouted, but I promised we'd reschedule. That night, I called my Aunt Ruth and her husband, Tom, the same ones who'd stood up for me at the dinner. I told them everything. Every detail Becca had told me, every word Miranda had said. Ruth didn't even hesitate. We'll be there, she said. Tom asked one question. You sure they'd really do it? I was sure. And I was done pretending they wouldn't. I spent the next day trying to act normal, making pancakes, helping Lily with homework, pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was buzzing, watching the clock, checking the locks, waiting. When Ruth and Tom showed up that night, we didn't talk much. Tom sat by the back door, Ruth near the hallway. Every light was off. The house felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. At 12:41 a.m., I heard it, the metallic rattle of a key sliding into the back door. Then a click. Then the door creaked open. My mother's whisper was the first thing I heard. Then Miranda's. Check the office first. My heart stopped. They were actually doing it, and I was standing 10 feet away in the dark. The sound of their footsteps was slow, deliberate, like they thought they were in control. I stood just out of sight, my back pressed against the wall, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I saw the faint glow of a phone flashlight sweep across the living room. Miranda's voice whispered, "She keeps her files in the office." Then my mom said something that made my skin crawl. "Don't take everything, just what matters." My hands were shaking, but I wasn't afraid anymore, just furious. Every ounce of fear I'd carried for years turned into something sharp and cold. I waited until they were halfway down the hallway before stepping forward. "Lose something," I said. The light hit my face. Miranda froze mid-step, her mouth open but no words coming out. My mom dropped the small bag she was holding, my bag, the one I kept under the desk. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "Besides committing a felony," neither answered. Miranda stammered something about worrying that I wasn't answering my phone. "At 1 in the morning," I said. "With a key you weren't supposed to have." Behind them, Aunt Ruth appeared from the shadows, calm but tense, her arms crossed. Tom was right behind her. My mom looked at them, then back at me, her face pale. "You set us up." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You did that yourself." Ruth's voice was low, steady. "You were really going to rob your own daughter." My mom started crying. Not real tears, the kind she used when she got caught. "It was a misunderstanding," she said. "We thought something happened to her." Miranda's voice broke. "You don't understand, Jules, we just—" "Stop," I cut her off. "Becca told me everything, the key, the plan, the money. You were going to come in here and take what's mine." My mom straightened, like she was done pretending. "We gave you everything," she said coldly. "You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for me." "That's where you're wrong," I said. "You didn't give me anything. You just taught me what kind of people I don't ever want to become." That's when Ruth stepped forward and did something I never expected. She grabbed my mother's arm and pulled her toward the door. "Get out," she said, her voice shaking with rage. My mom tried to pull away, but Ruth shoved her again. "Get the hell out of your daughter's house." Miranda turned to me with tears streaming down her face. "You're choosing them over us." I laughed, an ugly, bitter laugh I didn't know was coming. "You broke into my home. There are no sides, there's just right and wrong." Tom opened the door. The cold night air rushed in. "Go," he said. And for the first time in my life, my mother did what I told her to. She left. When the door shut behind them, I could finally breathe again. But it wasn't relief, it was realization. Because as I watched their headlights disappear down my street, one thought wouldn't leave my head. What were they really looking for? And the answer would be worse than I could have imagined. After that night, the house felt different. Not just because they'd been in it, because I'd seen who they really were when they thought no one was watching. I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen until sunrise, watching the clock, replaying every word they said. Just what matters. That line wouldn't leave my head. By morning, I'd already changed the locks. Called a locksmith before Lily even woke up. He didn't ask questions. He saw my face and just got to work. That day, I kept things normal for her. Waffles, cartoons, trip to the park. I didn't want her to feel the storm that was forming in the background. But when she went to bed that night, I started making calls. First to my Aunt Ruth and Uncle Tom, to thank them, to tell them I was done pretending. Then to a lawyer. I didn't want revenge at first, I just wanted protection. But when I laid everything out, the dinner, the key, the break-in, the threats, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You're going to want to keep records, not just for safety, for leverage." That word stuck, leverage. It was almost poetic, considering how many times my family had used it against me. That night, I went digging through my old boxes. Financial documents, old tax forms, random paperwork I'd kept from when my mom helped me with my first apartment. That's when I found it, a worn envelope taped under the bottom drawer of an old dresser she'd given me years ago. Inside were letters, receipts, and one tax return with her handwriting all over it. She'd filed under my name, years ago, claiming me as a dependent when I hadn't lived with her in ages. I flipped through the papers, my stomach tightening with every page. It was all there. Fake expenses, forged signatures, dates that didn't match. She'd committed fraud using my name. And suddenly it made sense. Why she'd wanted to check my office, why she'd kept asking about my accounts. She wasn't just controlling, she was desperate. I took photos of everything, scanned them, uploaded them to a private cloud, then printed copies and locked them in a safety deposit box I hadn't used in years. The next morning, I sent one text to my mother, "You should have destroyed your paperwork better." No explanation, no context, just that. She called 3 times within 5 minutes. Then Miranda texted, "Where did you get that?" I didn't reply because I wasn't done yet. They wanted to take from me money, control, my peace. So I was going to take something from them, power. And I had the perfect way to do it. 2 nights later, I was going through the safe in my closet, the one behind the false panel, just making sure everything was where it should be. Birth certificate, house deed, custody papers, savings documents. Nothing looked missing. Until I noticed one file out of place. The tab bent, the folder for my will. Inside was something I didn't recognize, a second key. Small, brass, with a pink plastic tag that said office. Except I didn't put it there. My stomach dropped. That safe was hidden. The panel was nailed shut from the inside. The only people who knew about it were me and the locksmith who'd installed it 3 years ago. and I sure as hell hadn't gone near it in months. I realized right then they'd been inside before the night of the break-in. Maybe while I was out, maybe while I was asleep, maybe one of the times they'd offered to help watch Lily when I worked overtime. I sat on the floor with that key in my hand, the world spinning. The idea that they'd been here in my room, going through my things, through my life, while pretending to play nice in front of my daughter made my skin crawl. But there was something else that didn't make sense. If they'd already been in my safe, why come back that night? What else were they after? I went back through the papers one more time. That's when I noticed the missing sticky note, one I'd left on my home insurance folder months ago with my policy number and login code. It wasn't there. They hadn't come to take money or documents. They'd come to use them. And suddenly I knew what just what matters meant. They weren't just planning to steal from me. They were planning to take everything I owned legally. If they had access to my signature, old forms, even my ID copies from the safe, they could easily stage something worse. Change beneficiaries, claim guardianship, create a narrative. They wanted my house, my money, and if things went far enough, my daughter. And as soon as that thought hit, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You've made this harder than it had to be. You'll regret not trusting us." No name, but I didn't need one. It was Miranda. Because that's exactly the kind of thing she'd say, controlled, smug, like she already had the next step planned. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done being the quiet one. And if they wanted to play legal games, I'd show them what it felt like to lose everything, slowly, painfully, and permanently. I found out the truth by accident. It was Amanda, my younger cousin, the one who'd warned me before, who told me. She came by one afternoon, quiet and pale, twisting her keys in her hands. "They weren't after your money," she said. Not just that. I didn't say anything, I just waited. She looked down, like she was ashamed to even repeat it. "Your mom told Miranda that if they could prove you were unstable, they could get custody of Lily." The room went silent. "What?" "She said you were working too much, that you'd been acting paranoid. Miranda said she'd call your ex, tell him you weren't doing well, maybe even report you for neglect." My throat went dry. Amanda's voice was barely above a whisper. "They were going to build a case, Jules, make it look like you were unfit. Then they could step in, take care of Lily, and the house, and everything else. Your mom said she'd finally fix the family's image." That last line hit harder than any slap could. Fix the family's image. That's all it ever was to her, not love, not concern, just optics. She wasn't protecting Lily. She wasn't trying to help. She was trying to erase me. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Amanda kept apologizing, saying she didn't want to get involved but couldn't stay quiet anymore. I thanked her, but my head was buzzing. Every weird thing suddenly clicked into place. The constant questions about my job, the "you've been acting different" comments, the late-night messages about whether Lily was safe. They weren't paranoia checks. They were building evidence. Then I remembered the email Miranda had sent after the break-in, the one that said I was unpredictable and might need professional help. At the time, I thought it was manipulation. Now I saw it for what it was, documentation. They were creating a paper trail. They were never going to rob me. They were going to destroy me. My mom wanted control of the story. My sister wanted control of the inheritance. Together, they decided the easiest way to get both was to take my child and label me unfit. I didn't even realize I was crying until Amanda reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "They can't win," she said. "No," I whispered. "They won't." That night, I stayed up until sunrise again, not shaking this time, not terrified, just focused. Cold, because for the first time I understood exactly who I was dealing with, and exactly how I was going to end it. By Monday morning, I had a plan, not a fantasy, not a rant, a real, airtight plan. First, I met with my lawyer. I laid everything out, the break-in, the emails, the text, the fraud. She didn't even blink. She said one sentence that felt like a switch flipping inside me. "You hold all the cards now." She helped me file reports, not police charges yet, just documentation. Enough to timestamp the break-in and secure proof that my mom and sister had tried to access my property without permission. Then, we updated my will, explicitly naming that under no circumstances could Patricia or Miranda be considered guardians of Lily. I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in months. Then I made one last move. I sent Miranda a message, a single image. The handwritten tax note my mom forged years ago. I didn't add text, didn't threaten. Just let her see it. She replied 2 minutes later. Where did you get that? I didn't respond. I just sent another image, the one of her email suggesting I needed help. Then one final message. Lawyers call that retaliation. They'll love seeing both. I blocked her. An hour later, my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came through, new number, same tone. You don't understand what you're doing. You'll ruin us. Exactly. I printed the proof. Put copies in 3 places: my lawyer's office, my safe, and Ruth's house. Then I did what they never expected, nothing. No threats, no explosions, no dramatic confrontation. I let silence do the work. Within a week, I heard from Amanda that they were panicking. Mom thought I'd gone to the IRS. Miranda was terrified her husband would find out she'd been using my info to move money between accounts for Mom. The rumor mill turned on them, the same one they'd used against me for years. Suddenly, they were the ones being whispered about. I didn't have to lift a finger. I'd already taken everything that mattered: their credibility, their control, their audience. The last text I ever got from my mom came 3 weeks later. It said, "Please, Jules, don't let one mistake ruin our family." A mistake. That's what she called breaking into my home, forging my name, and plotting to take my daughter. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked out to the backyard, deleted her number, and watched Lily chase Bubbles across the grass, laughing in the sunlight. That's when I finally understood what peace really felt like: not silence from them, but quiet inside myself. I didn't need revenge that left blood. I just needed them irrelevant. It's been 4 months now. I changed every lock, every password, every emergency contact. Lily hasn't asked about them in weeks. We have new routines, real laughter, mornings that don't start with dread. And every time I think about that night, my mother's whisper in the dark, my sister's flashlight scanning my desk, I don't shake anymore. I smile. Because they were right about one thing: they don't need me. And now they'll never have me again.